All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. It is late November, and it is time to winterize the skis. So they're out for the season. We had our last run a few weeks ago. Ran them through fresh water just to get all the salt out of them in the river. So now that we're done that, we'll show you the process on how to get them winterized and stored for the season. So we'll put them away now. We'll pull them back out probably in early April. So a few months, nothing crazy, but it gets pretty cold here in PA, so we want to make sure they're good to go. So these skis are both 4-strokes. One on the left is a 2006 RXT 215. It's supercharged. That one's a 2015 GTI 155. So a little different. Like I said, they're both 4-strokes on how you do it. This one takes a little more work to get underneath, but both pretty simple, and both generally the same when it comes to winterizing and storing them. So you'll get to see, if you have an older one, how to do that one, and the newer versions, how you do that. That one has IBR and a couple other newer features, and this one doesn't. But yeah, we'll jump into it now. So in order to prevent any condensation in the oil, in the fuel, I put top grade fuel all the way to the top them both off, and then I add stable to both tanks. This is both ethanol treatment and a stabilizer, so as long as the fuel sit for a few months, if you have this in there, it shouldn't be a problem. All right, so these are both self-draining. You really don't need to run antifreeze through them, but I like to, just extra precaution. So on this one, we're gonna hook a hose up here. And this one, it's all the way in the back there. You can see the connection right here. So what I do is, get your normal antifreeze. I got mine online. They have the gravity fed buckets that you can just hook on and hold up and let it feed. I have a pump. So I'll just pour the antifreeze in the bucket. I'll hook the hose up and I'll run the skis just for a few seconds to get all the fresh water out. Make sure none of the lines freeze over the winter time. So I have this shut off right now. I always like to start the ski first, even when I'm flushing with fresh water. And then run back and turn on the water. That way you're not forcing water through the system without the engine running. A little cold, hasn't started in a while. All right, it's been running for about a minute. I'm gonna shut this off, kill the ski. Now we've got enough antifreeze to that system there. So now we'll do the same thing to this one. I'll show you that in a second. So this one could be a little more of a pain. You got to reach in here and screw this. Sometimes it's hard to get it started, the threads, but that's pretty easy. All right, it's been about a minute. Shut this off. Go down here and fill the antifreeze, and that's that. So now they've both been flushed with antifreeze, so we know there's no fresh water in the system, or salt water for that matter. And now we'll get to what we do with the cylinders underneath. All right, so we'll start with the GTI, just because it's easier. There's less stuff to take off here. All right, so for the GTI, pull your oil stick out, pop this off. All right, I'm gonna get your 3 cylinders here, 1, 2, 3. So first thing you want to do is disconnect these electrical connections, 1, 2, 3, and you pull these out, and you'll get access to your spark plugs. And if you look down there, here's your 3 spark plugs. So we just changed these at the beginning of the season. Again, typically what I'll do is in the spring, I'll change the oil filter, pump out the oil, put in new oil, and I'll change all 3 spark plugs. But for this year, we really didn't use them much, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm just gonna lubricate the cylinders, put some dielectric grease on all the connections, and we should be good to go. All right, so for this, you're gonna need, to get down in there, this extension socket wrench. It's a 5/8 regular spark plug connection there. So you just stick it down in there, loosen it up, and then once it's all the way out, if it doesn't stay in the little rubber gasket there when you pull it, which doesn't look like it's going to, you could use these to get them out. So just stick it back in there, push it on the plug, turn it, and it'll pull right out. There's one. Let's keep that in there for now. All right, so once that's done, we have this XPS. This is BRP. This is recommended for SeaDoo, although I've used regular fogging oils before. I just like to give like a 3 to 5 second squirt in each cylinder. All right, so I found a little straw, make it easier, just to make sure it's getting in there where we want it. Again, about 3 to 5 seconds. It's good. So once you get the oil on there, just throw a towel over the holes, or you can put them back. Even with these newer ones, they have a drown mode where you're just holding the throttle. And that just works that oil into those cylinders. Pull it out. All right, so now we'll get some of this dielectric grease. And I just like to put a little bit around each of these connections, just to make sure they don't seize up or get too corroded there. Take this, wipe off the excess, and just put a little bit on here. Just rub it around with your finger there. Same thing, just don't want anything to seize up. So now we'll put our spark plugs back in. So I just use these to get them started again. Pull that out, good to go. All right, we'll use this to tighten them up the rest of the way. So right there's tension. You don't have to go crazy. I don't know if there's any torque specification on any of this stuff, but I don't worry about it. They're tight. Put our connectors back in here. They just, again, push until they click. And then these just go right over it. Make sure those orange bits are still in there when you put them in. There you go. 1, 2, 3, good to go. All right, before I close this up, I like to give it a one over. I have this, again, XPS anti-corrosive lube. It's just good for keeping the salt off and everything like that. So I'll just spray it down real quick, give it a quick wipe, and then I'll put this back on. Just a quick one over real quick. All right, that's it for in here until the spring. So put the seat back on. So this just pops right on here. Again, much easier than that one, which you'll see. Again, good to go. All right, so once we're done under there, last thing we do, other than covering it, is hook up these trickle chargers. So this just keeps the battery good if you don't want to take your battery out. So we already have these connections from last year. So for the 155, it's under the front here. You pull it up, and I'm not sure if you can see in there, but there's our battery right there. And last winter, we just leave these hooked up to the terminal. It's right here. And then this just connects right to that. It just plugs in. What I'll do is when I cover it, I have both of these plugs hooked up to one extension cord. I keep it plugged into the house, and I just leave it like that all winter long. So I leave the box just sitting right on top under the cover. Make sure it has a little bit of air around it so it can breathe. These don't really get too warm, but, and then yeah, plug this in, cover it up, and it'll be good to go. So that's it for the 155. Pretty simple. Now we'll do the RXT. It's no different, other than there's a few more screws we have to take off to access underneath there. So we'll do that now. All right, so just finished this up, showed you guys the trickle charger, and realized I forgot something. So the injector rod here, I do like to spray some fogging oil on that too. So to access this, it's just these two bolts here, and these are torque specific, although I don't really do it. I just kind of tighten them down. But you unscrew these, it's 2 screws. And then all you need to do is just, there's a few connections here. You might be able to get it out without taking them off, but you just kind of wiggle this out enough so you can slide the hose down in there. So you can see that lifts up like that, and you got access to these 3 right there. So I'll get the fogging oil again. And this is really where the little straw comes in handy, not so much the cylinders, but it's tough to get in there without one. So again, just 3 to 5 seconds. Good. Good. So now that's done, just push this back in, make sure those gaskets are all seated properly, and then we'll put these screws back in. So once I get these back in there, for this one, you don't need to pull the plugs out. We'll just hold it in drown mode and then crank it for another 3 seconds. So we'll do that real quick right now. All right, tightened up. Throw the key one more time. Again, would have done this when I did these ones, but I forgot, so we're doing it now. Holding in the throttle, so it's in drown mode. And just cranking it for a few seconds, good to go. And that's it. So now we will go to that one. So for this one, this is the plastic cover, same as that was on the other one, except we have to take off these bolts to remove this so we can access the cylinders. All right, so we'll start by loosening these. You got 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, all four are out. So now this just lifts up. And before you do that, you have to take out the coolant here. So just pinch those, set that down, and you'll see this just lifts up like that. Set this on the back. Now you got your little exhaust thing here. This just comes out, sets down like that. And now you're at the same spot you were with the other ski. So like I said, just a little more difficult to access, but ultimately it's the same. Pull out our dipstick, set that down. That pops out right there. And then these pinch in, comes up, and you're in the same spot you were with the other one. So now we'll get to it. Same thing, disconnect. We'll go left to right this time. So these just kind of pull out. They're not threaded. Now we'll get our 5/8 socket extension. We'll reach down in there and take out all of the 3 plugs. Again, just kind of really needed to break it, and then we'll use the plugs there to pull them out. Again, try not to lose these little orange gaskets there. You see they're in the back of those two, and this one they stayed on. So spark plugs are fine. Again, didn't really use this ski much this season, unfortunately. Once we get all 3 of these out, we'll get that fogging oil, and we'll hit all 3 cylinders with that. Same stuff, XPS storage oil by BRP. Good. And now before we put those back in, we'll do the fuel rod here. So this one, other than being the other one was the wrench, this is a hex. So we'll take these 2 out. Careful not to lose these, because it is a pain in the ass if you drop anything under this motor to get it. It's a tight space. The newer skis, there's a lot more work room, but unfortunately these older ones, like I said, this is an 06, it's difficult to get in there to do anything. So you same thing, just kind of shimmy this out a little bit, enough to where you can get in. And a little burst in each one. Hold your little hose here to make sure it doesn't drop in there, because if it does, you're not getting it out. Look at that, just came off. So now we'll put that back on first. Make sure they snap in. Okay. All right, so now we have that out. I don't know if this one has drowning mode or not. I don't believe it does, but it's not going to start without the plug. So same thing, I'll just cover this up with a towel so we don't get that oil all over the place. And then we'll throw the key in, let it crank for a few seconds just to get all the oil moving around those cylinders there. All right, that's good. Now we'll get some of that dielectric grease. Just put a little bit on there. Don't have any issues. All right. push these back in. All right, pull these back out and I'll tighten them up with the wrench. All right, tighten them all up with the 5/8 socket. Now we're shoving these back in until they click. Good, and then connecting these here. And again, for this one, we're using the trickle charger to maintain the battery all season. And we already had this one hooked up from last year. And on this ski, the battery's right here. Same thing, I'll put a little bit of the silicone grease on here, just so it's not too hard to get off in the spring. And these just connect right here. That's good to go. So same thing as the other one, I'll do a quick spray here of the parts, just make sure everything's good. And I'll just give it a quick wipe down. Goes back together, same way it came apart. Snap that in. All right, you just got to line up these screws and tighten these up. So we'll do that now. All right, all back together. So we'll put these back, leaving that trickle charger wire out so we can connect it. All right, there they go. All right, guys, so that's all there is to it. Not too bad. So they're both ran antifreeze through them, fogged out the cylinders, anti-corrosive spray on the engines themselves, and then hooked them up to a trickle charger, some dielectric grease, and you're pretty much good to go for the season. Like I said, in the spring, what we'll do is we'll change the spark plugs, we'll change the oil filter, we'll swap out the oil, run on some fresh water, and make sure they're all good to go. So that's it. From here, we're gonna back them up, plug in the trickle chargers, cover them up, and they'll be good for the season. So we'll see you again in the spring. If you have any questions on the process or anything else you want to see, please leave a comment. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and yeah, we'll make another one in the spring for the oil change. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.